Well, hello everybody. Roger Sullivan here, and just wanted to. Sorry, I just got back from a walk. I will brag. I'm in Florida, and it was 88 today, so it's a little hot and muggy. Had to wait until the sun went down to go out for my walk. So I wanted to come on really quick, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Stripe and Square and why I feel like people use them, and maybe a little bit of why they shouldn't. So a lot of people get involved in business. They start a business, and they're thinking about everything that goes into the business. They're manufacturing and selling Flugel binders. Well, where am I going to get my Flugel binder supplies? Who's going to make my Flugel binders? How am I going to get them to market? Oh, I need a website. Am I going to have an e-commerce store? Is it going to be a brick and mortar store? Oh my gosh, I could put my Flugel binders right next to the Pottery Barn. I mean, that would be fantastic. They're my avatar. So I need to look into leases. I need to look into all of these things, and they come up with it, and they're ready to go, and they get their website built, and they get their store built, or let's just stay with e-commerce. So they get their website built, and they've got their first order of Flugel binders coming in, or maybe they've got a Flugel binders on demand maker. Like, I've got it, it's perfect. I've got this guy that as soon as an order comes in, he'll make it and ship it, and that's great. I don't even have to touch it. But my point is there's a lot of thought that goes into how to own, how to operate, run, and start your Flugel binder business. Well, one of the last things they think about is taking payments. Oh my gosh, how am I going to take payments? I mean, it's online. People got to. I need to take credit cards. How do I take credit cards? And maybe they did their website through Wix, or something. Maybe they started a WooCommerce site, or they're on Shopify, and there's a really easy way to take payments. Just click right here and integrate Stripe right into your site, or your website, or your store, or integrate Square right in. Perfect, problem solved. I can take payments, and they do it with no thought about credit card processing fees. Now, Stripe and Square are super easy. It is literally, you click a button, you put in your banking details, put in a little bit of information about you and your website. That's it. Boom. In 15 minutes, you can take a credit card. So there's no underwriting, there's no credit check, there's no anything. So it's really, really simple. And that's why businesses do it, because it's a box they check. Nobody does any research into credit card processing, or who's going to take their credit cards, who's going to process it when they're starting a business. I won't say nobody does, because I'm sure that there's an exception to the rule that's watching this. But 99.9% of the people just don't do it. It's an afterthought, and they check a box and they get it done, and they don't think about it until years later, or when they really start doing some volume and they get their statement and they realize how much they're paying in credit card fees. So the deal with Stripe and Square is they don't do any underwriting up front. So what that means is they just take your payment, and they hope for the best. They do billions and billions and billions of dollars in transactions every single year. And if they start to have a problem with somebody, if it's not easy, if they start to get a couple chargebacks, or what they're selling start to get some complaints and stuff, they'll literally just X their account. It's not worth the headache of trying to correct them or anything like that. I've actually heard from somebody that I know at a very well-known gateway that was at a gathering, and heard from a Stripe executive that they believe that anybody who has more than a 1.5% chargeback is doing fraudulent business, and they shouldn't be in business. Now, that may not seem like a lot to you, 1.5%, and it's not. But there are businesses that have chargebacks for whatever reason. Airbnb has chargebacks because there's people that are scamming these large platforms, and their chargeback percentage, it might skate above 1.5% for a month, or maybe they have a bad month, or a bad quarter, or a bad week. With these guidelines, if you're just, is Airbnb a fraudulent business? No, they're not. Things happen in business, but companies like Stripe and Square, they make their algorithms so tight that it's just automated. And if they don't shut down your money, or they don't shut down your account, even worse, they'll freeze your funds. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard, there's a story that was told by Alex Hormozi. You can look this up. It's absolutely true. When he started doing his gym coaching business, which is his first, big business where he started to make a lot of money, he got a phone call from a processor who will not be named. Good morning, Mr. Hormozi. I just want to let you know there's some abnormal activity on your account, and we see that there's about $150,000 in your account that's come in over a very short time. So this is just a courtesy call. We want to let you know that we're going to hold that money for 6 months to see what happens in case any chargebacks or anything come through on that, because just want to make sure that money's there. And he freaked out. And you can read the story if you haven't read the book. $100 Million Offers, it's in there, or you can just search it online and he'll tell the story. But they did it, and they took his money, and they held it for 6 months, and that crippled his business. It actually backed him into a corner. It's a cool story. It ends up on the other side because it kind of made him go all in on a couple things. But the fact is that these processors, they can do it. And I've heard, I need to verify, but I've heard that Stripe has just changed their terms and conditions that specifically address a certain category of products that are really popular, that make up a very large base of Stripe's payment, not a large base, but a good portion of their payment processing. And they've made those products not allowable. Now, they're not going through and they're not deleting accounts, but they put that in there so that if something comes up and they find it out, it's another quick decision. There's no argument, there's no anything. And Stripe's been taking payments on these kind of products for at least a decade, and they've just decided to change. So they don't do any underwriting up front, but they do it on the back end because they're monitoring your stuff, and if it raises the red flags in their algorithms, their policies, they're going to just freeze your money or close your account, or both, because they can do that. Square's the same way, but it's super, super easy, and that's why people do it. What I tell people is, if you're starting out in business, go ahead and go with Stripe and go with Square until you start doing some volume. Once you start doing some real volume, look, if you've got an Etsy store, or and you're making print-on-demand T-shirts, and you're doing, it's a side hustle, and maybe you do $1,000 a week, just fine, it's Stripe. But if you're a business that is using Stripe either independently or through a software that you're using for management and your CRM and everything like that, you are spending way too much money. Here's an example. If you are here, this is just the math, okay? At 2.9% and 30 cents a transaction. Here's just the math. If you are doing $1 million a year, you're spending $30,000 minimum on credit card processing fee to Stripe for the convenience of them processing your payments. Now, there are other options. There are so many other options, and they're not as difficult as I think. When I say underwriting, everyone thinks that's such a scary thing. Look, if you're established in business and you've got credit and all this stuff, underwriting's 24 hours. Most of the legitimate processors have it all automated. I processed a good buddy of mine up in Washington. He's a third generation auto shop owner. He does a little over $1 million a year, and he spent a lot of money on credit card processing fees. We filled out his application, and no sooner did I hit submit after he signed it that we got an automatic approval. So it can happen, and we've saved him tens of thousands of dollars this year. So, and with that money, he can do an add-on. He can give his employees a raise. He might be able to pay for medical benefits. He might be able to give guys time off. He can have a slush fund, so when guys get hurt, that he can still afford to pay them. Maybe he can just take a kick-butt vacation with his daughters and go on a cruise for a while. But we're saving him tens of thousands of dollars every year. So here's the point of the story. I understand why businesses use Stripe to get started, but they should not keep using Stripe. They are just taking your money. And here's the thing. They're taking about 3 to 3.5% of your money with the transaction fee and everything. It's 3 to 3.5%. If you've got a net profit margin of 15%, by me adding that 3% back to your net margin, that's a 20% increase to your bottom line. Is that worth taking a look? Is Stripe worth 20% increase to your bottom line? I don't think so. Anyway, it's long enough. I'll talk to you later.